Well, good morning, everybody. Here on Friday morning, one of the things I want to talk about to get us started is the reluctance of the atmosphere to break a pattern. And I want to talk to you about that because if you remember my forecast video on Wednesday, I showed you the AI model was trying to drop this huge front, breaking through what had been for about, 20 plus days, just a massive ridge in the midsection of the United States. And we were expecting that if the AI model had it right, which remember we said, hey, the European ensemble, the GFS ensemble are not on board, but the AI is all in on dropping this cold air in. Well, if it was going to do that, we had to replace this deeper trough that's been in the Gulf of Alaska and just put a ridge there, and that would change the entire downstream pattern. But we've been like this for a while. Incredible flow through the North Pacific, but then this just persistent large ridge that has lived in North America, shoving the jet stream pretty far to the north. And that has been the main driver, climate driver across the entire planet, keeping this as a major epicenter of heat while Alaska's been cold, and so has this part of Siberia, which we're watching carefully as we get into the month of October for total snow cover. Now, just thinking that through, you can see that there has been a deep trough here. And that's going to be another just piece of the atmosphere to watch to see if this shifts at all to disrupt the rest of the pattern across North America. But if you take a look at what it's doing in anomalous form, so those were the average winds. Now we're going to look at them compared to normal. What you can see is there's that deep low that is in Siberia, but there's a very large ridge that's sitting here, the low in the Gulf of Alaska, the large ridge that's centered in Canada, and the low that has been here in the North Atlantic. And that has been kind of our pattern as it's been wrapped up and stuck in this same configuration for quite some time. And that's what's resulted in this, right? So we've now shown this multiple times, but since about the 9th or 10th of September, we left all the cooler air behind, the pattern locked into what you just saw. And now there are numerous climate reporting districts that are not just top 5, but now the warmest such stretch of days since our record keeping began back in 1893. Now, we had seen in some models that this is all going to break down, and some of the newest forecasts are just washing that out entirely. So we've been picking on Minneapolis all week. So I just went back to Minneapolis again today. This has been well forecast, the front that's coming through on Sunday, knocking the temperatures back next week. But take a look at the model separation as you go forward. The European model here is bringing it back up warm. It is one of our warmest models going farther into the forecast. The GFS now is actually our coolest model. As you can see, it's hovering down here with these pretty chilly temperatures. But just look at the model spread. On October 13th, that would be the Monday, we've got the GFS with a low of 45 degrees and the European with a low of 68. So just a nice little 23-degree spread in the temperatures here. And so this is what we're continuing to watch. It's this time period where the models are kind of swinging for the fences and occasionally missing. And we need to just keep a steady hand, likely steering away from the AI model and focusing more on the ensembles. That's the lesson that we have to just learn. I like using the AI model. It's something different. It adds another piece of information, but my goodness, we've got to understand some of its weaknesses when we look at this. Now, with these big changes in temperature, we do expect large changes in pressure as well. I'm going to show you something here. If I flip over to the 15-day winds, there is a trough coming through. The pressure is going to drop off, as you can see in the line in the background, then quickly recover. So as the pressure drops, see the wind speeds increasing this weekend? Now, this is just in Minneapolis. And as the pressure increases, the winds drop. It's kind of a neat relationship between how that works. And I bring that up because one of the focal points is that there are going to be very strong winds throughout the day today, getting into Saturday and Sunday, that are across the central part of the United States. If I just take you out to Monday evening, we are watching a pretty wide stretch here that starts in parts of the Panhandles, goes clear to Minnesota and all the way in Ontario and Quebec, where we are going to be keeping an eye out for 30 to 40, maybe 50 mile an hour wind gusts in places. Now, these are synoptic scale winds, not local wind systems around thunderstorms. And these winds do get strong all the way back to the Four Corners states as well. Where we've had our frosts in the early morning, we've had light winds. We continue to see them here, but we'll come back to more on those temperatures in just a second. As I play this out, a couple of other things we've been watching. You know that this next tropical system, not here in the Atlantic, but here in the Pacific, potentially getting the name Priscilla. There have been some forecast models, see it right there, that have wanted to take it and rip it through the southwest, some that are lingering out to open ocean like the GFS. And we're just trying to monitor what and where and when and how the atmosphere is going to break this pattern down. And so we're searching, and that's kind of what's going on here, and especially in my forecast videos this week. Matt has had I kind of get jealous of Matt sometimes. He sees things that I don't see, and that's why I love working with the guy. It's the same with Andrew. Andrew's ability to see high impact severe weather events is just, it makes me look like I'm a kindergartner. So that's why you surround yourself with people that are significantly smarter than you, so that you can learn. I always tell kids, don't ever think that it's wrong to be the dumbest kid in the room. That means you have the most to gain and most to learn. And if you keep that attitude, you will make progress. And don't forget, hard work outdoes brains every day, but helps when you can get the combination together. Anyway, sorry. I did 15 years of academic advising at the university. Something like 8,000 kids have sat in my office, so I just sometimes get into that. All right, back to this. Temperatures. We do know, and this has been well forecast, that we're expecting to get cooler air in. It's the system coming in early next week, and you can see the frost threat showing up now across the northern tier. There's nothing not normal about this, though. This is a normal time period in which to get a frost, this far north. We typically look at the second week of October here, and then the third week it just keeps sliding farther and farther until you're into November, and it tends to come down even farther to the south. But in terms of a large-scale colder outbreak, which the AI model is going after, it's not this. So again, your map is a 7-day frost risk. Let's take a look at the min temperatures here. This is this morning. Of course, this is not yet. This is tomorrow morning. The min temperatures here are actually closer to the climatological highs, the average highs in this part of the upper Midwest on Saturday. We get into Sunday, Monday, there it is. There's the much cooler air coming into the northern tier of the United States through the Canadian prairie. And now we're going to see this early next week, Monday, Tuesday, and then getting into Wednesday, it's going to get all the way over here to parts of the upper Midwest. Now, outside of that, very, very mild air continues to just stay in place. And this is brief. This is by next Thursday. This is trying to settle into the Northeast and the Eastern Great Lakes and move out. But behind it, we're still above average in terms of these temperatures. And very quickly, if you want to see the max highs, that's min. Here's max highs. We're in the 90s today here. Cool in the west. There's cloud cover. There's rain. I'll show you that in a second. But that would be on Saturday. Holy cow, it's going to be warm. Getting into Sunday, Monday, and there's the cooler air coming in next week. So just take a look at this. In the Dakotas, we're talking highs in the 50s by Tuesday, whereas today we're almost in the 90s, or in the 90s. So nice little 40-degree swing in temperature. But it's how long is that going to last? That's the big question that we're trying to go after. Now, you know that on agweather.com, you click on the maps, you can get the matrix of all these temperatures. I just want to show you something. It was the AI model that was taking all that blue representing cold air and driving it in here day 10 through 15. And that has been replaced. That is the new AI forecast. So nothing like a 50-degree swing in its forecast temperatures in this area. And that's just one of the reasons we're going to stay more closely aligned with what you see in the European ensemble and in the GFS ensemble. And this is what we're now looking at for the next couple of weeks. I just stay focused on these two rows. I think the AI model is just, it's trying to pick up on features that aren't breaking down this. All right, I think that's where I want to take that story. Okay, so let's look at the European ensemble. And my focus is going to be here. Because if we are going to drive repeated chances of colder air here, we need to get a bit of a broad ridge. I don't want an omega block if you're going to be trying to drive cold air in here. And the reason is, if you end up getting more an omega look, which is this, these troughs love to go that direction, not this direction. That's kind of the main thought process here. So by Saturday into Sunday, look, we have a crashing wave. And what did it do? See how it pulled the flow back like that? That lessens the depth to the south that this trough can make it. Instead, it skirts off. This direction, it brings in a cold front. But this could have been much more substantial. And then what do? We stack it back up again. Can you see it? Look at this. And here comes what could be Priscilla. And we were curious if Priscilla had any sort of a shot at just wrapping itself up here. If this trough could come a little farther to the south, the southern edge of it would grab Priscilla, and we would just pull this across the country, and we'd be talking about Pacific moisture in Iowa. But as it stands, look what we do. See it? And that pulls this trough back. That's going to influence where Priscilla goes. and then the trough just lives in the west and the forecast models out to day 10. So the net effect of this is to keep the western United States cool. That's your next 5 days. Play this out. This is day 5 through 10. See how it reinvigorates the cooler weather there? And then day 10 through 15. And what you see in the European model is, yes, there's a front coming through here, but it's brief. It comes through for a couple of days, knocks the temperatures back, and then overall, what do we see? A regaining of the warmth. Now, at the end of my forecast video, I'm going to follow Matt's lead about 2024 to 2025, that last fall, winter, because there's more than just this similarity in that, and I want to get to that in a few minutes. But there's a precipitation side of this we need to discuss as well. And over that same time period, again, this time early September to the end of September, we had our Pacific high living here, and the Bermuda high has drifted. And that's limited moisture return in the middle part of the country. And it steered every one of our hurricanes out to open ocean for the most part. Right? Look at this. That is the biggest symptom of a lost Bermuda high that I could show you. Every one of these tropical systems staying out. Now, if I show you the precip ranks from that same time period, the 9th or 10th of September to October 2nd, we've continued to build in drought across the south and the northeast and Great Lakes, this whole region. And that little sliver of moisture that's tried to do this is what's kept this region wetter. We've been drier in parts of Montana and in pockets of the Pacific Northwest, but there have been troughs that have snuck in, plus tropical systems that have kept the Southwest a little bit wetter than average in places, although this has still been a very lackluster year for the southwestern monsoon. Now, this is the time period I've shown you on repeat. So this is the one I go back to the August 1st, when most of the Bermuda high had already left, leaving just, the Mississippi Basin in its entirety dry, the Ohio Basin, the eastern Great Lakes and Northeast, very, very dry. And that has been where we've seen the biggest expansion of drought during that time frame. We're at about 70% covered in some form of drought. That includes the D0 abnormally dry area. But over the last 9 weeks since this has started, the greatest epicenter of that dryness has been here at the confluence of the Missouri, Mississippi, and Ohio Basin toward the northeast and then along the southeast coast. And this whole region, which includes a lot of cotton belt, corn belt, and northeast, just continues to see values drop. Now, this past week, there was a little bit of rain. This map is valid through yesterday morning, not this morning. It's always got a one-day lag. But there was a little bit of rain in the midsection of the country and some isolated storms here yesterday. But you can see just that large wedge which the models did an excellent job predicting, showing you how dry it's been for the last 7 days alone while the heat's been on. Now, this is from the remnant system that came through more than a week ago, came through this part of the plains mid-south over to the east, and it helped revive some soil moisture problems that we're having in the southeast up to the mid-Atlantic. The west, though, a lot of places here, much wetter than average. But to remember, to be wetter than average in a desert is much different than being wetter than average, for example, in Arkansas. So just something to keep in mind here. But as I see it through, the soil moisture values in those dry areas just continue to plummet, and this includes a lot of the drainage basins from our major river networks in the midsection of the U.S. Now, a lot of those rivers have already gathered into the Mississippi Basin by the time we get to Memphis, which is why we look at it so often. And as we saw, there was a little bump up. What did it go from? -7 to -3 almost. So, a nice little 4-foot rise, but since then it has dropped back down to 6 feet below low stage. And given the forecast is drier, we're going to have to continue to monitor what's going on with that river. So just a quick kind of look at this. Next 7 days, what I've got shaded for you here is who stays under 1/10 of an inch. And we're just identifying a few of these corridors east of the Rockies that are dry. The Southwest is dry. The Columbia Basin is dry. And we see these couple of pockets here in the Canadian Prairie that are drier as well. Now, for folks that are here, we are looking for just anything to maybe come out of the tropics, just a revival of moisture as we go forward. The West, you're going to be waiting on the jet. Got to wait on the jet stream to really just come through and provide good moisture. But here, let's just go have a look at it. Our current setup in the tropical system is look at the separation right now between what was Umberto and now Imelda, which is here. And it was kind of neat. Matt kind of showed you these fronts which daisy chain together. And this is a powerful system coming through Great Britain this morning, just delivering incredibly strong winds. And while Imelda is still churning up huge waves. On the backside, high pressure has replaced this across the East Coast, and there's some southerly flow that we're going to watch for a system coming out of this part of the U.S. here in just a few moments. But I do want to show you something kind of neat. Go back a few days. So here's Umberto, and that was the beginning of Imelda on the 28th. As I play this forward, you can see the Fujiwara effect. Did you see how Umberto pulled Imelda in this direction? That was part of why. Remember, there was also a trough here. But I do believe, and I'm going to have to go and look this up later, that when these two systems right here, I think it was on the 30th, they were less than 500 miles away from one another, which may be the closest two hurricanes have ever come together in the Atlantic. We got to go look that up. I've just kind of been hearing about it, and I want to know if it's true. So I'll look that up later. But the reality is, this is where we stand on the tropical systems. What am I looking for? Just something here that's going to go north, and it's not. Then we know we have to watch Priscilla. We do have a 10% chance here and a 30% chance of this next wave. But if you kind of zoom in here, I'm just curious, is this one ever going to make it all the way to the East Coast, or will that dominant Bermuda high keep it out to open ocean? And some of that answer is shown up right here. This is the newest European model forecast of looking at the ensemble track lows. And sure enough, the Bermuda high seems to want to win again with this next system, which the National Hurricane Center is giving a 30% chance of developing. Can you see it curling out to open ocean? Now, we will watch and see how much rainfall we're going to be getting out of this feature in just a moment here. All right, but before I get there, I had a story, and Matt backed this up yesterday, that we'd better watch the Pacific. Specifically, what could be named Priscilla. Because some of the models are attempting to take it and pull it in to the southwest. And I don't know if you caught Matt's joke the other day about Priscilla getting to Vegas, but it was a good one. It's kind of a dad joke, but he's a dad. He's allowed to do that. But we're keeping an eye on this as the potential setup for delivering Pacific moisture into the southwest and maybe into the central U.S. But as it stands, this morning's European model, there it is. This is what would be named Priscilla. It comes up toward the Baja. And yesterday's models kept it strong and brought it right in through here. And then today, you can see a much weaker scenario. And that's what's going to be tricky about this. The model will often give us hints as to where something could go. And, we just have to be careful not to blow it out of proportion and watch the model-to-model runs as we go forward. So where that all lands us is here. I really loved Matt's diagnosis of this upper-level pattern, so I'm going to do it for you as well. This is getting through tonight into Saturday. Now, we're going to take a close look at the storms around this and then the snow on the backside in a minute in the Rockies. But this is the trough that sweeps through and brings in the colder air, and the disturbance out ahead of it's bringing in some precip. And behind it, there's a nice wave coming through here on Monday. That's going to be associated with the colder air that's happening in this region next week. But what I'm keeping an eye on, all right, as that goes through parts of Ontario, see the rebounding ridge? Okay, watch the west. Trough off the coast of California. What could be Priscilla. That timing and the spacing between these two features, man, I'd love to see them get a little closer to one another. So what happens is you drop this trough in lower, this gets just flung into the Four Corners states. But as it stands, their timing is just off in the current model run. But it is going to be significant for the west. I'll show you the moisture from the west. And I want to remind you, as Matt did yesterday, we are out there. This is a week out in the forecast or more. We're trying to just be speculative and using single model runs to see where this could go. But the net effect of this entire pattern is to land us here for the next 7 days. So you can see some of that moisture. You can see the effects of those troughs. And here we have the tropical pulse coming into the southwest trying to deliver some precip. Now, as you can imagine, the models don't agree. That is the WPC forecast from the National Weather Service. Here's the GFS. WPC GFS. This is the National Weather Service's model. It's their flagship model. And there's still quite a bit of difference here. And then here's the European. In fact, I think the European possibly has a closer solution to the WPC. That's what you see. Before all of this, though, let's get a refresh on this. This is what's happening this weekend. I don't want to go too far ahead. But as I play it forward, take a look at the trough that's in the west. This is through tonight, getting into tomorrow morning. Look at that low spreading some rainfall. Now, that dry spot in Montana is here. And a lot of this is staying south of it. But as we play it forward, there's a nice little system curling up with the first wave leaving. And it's going to go right over the Red River all the way up to Lake Winnipeg here. And behind it, plenty of cold air dropping in, bringing in some snow. Since we're thinking about that snow, just have a look at what the European model solution is on it. There you go. That's through Sunday. Pretty high in elevation, but there's snow coming into the Rockies here. Maybe some snow coming into the Sierra Nevada with this pattern as well as that cutoff low sets up. In fact, let's go see later on. Maybe some additional snow from the cutoff low. But that seems to be the way the pattern's setting up. So what are we seeing into week 2? Let's get back to the broader picture. Every model, okay, is trying to bring something here. See it? But what did we talk about on Wednesday? That something was expected to make it all the way into the midsection of the country, and it's just not showing up now in the forecasts. So that gives us still this anchor of dryness that's down here in Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. And I think we're going to have to just keep a very close eye on what's going to happen down in that area. Now, speaking of that area, I do want to let you know that still, starting next week, there is another time period where the lid is coming off the tropics, and it may last 10 or 12 days. And is it possible that we get something to form out of the Bay of Campeche? Is it something going to come out of the Gulf? I've been talking about it for about a month and a half, and it's not happened. But this is something we're going to keep an eye on. I also want to know if this is going to happen. Is the MJO really going to go over to phase 5-6? I don't know. It's too much in the null space for me right now to make a call on. But that lands us here. This is your new October forecast, 30-day outlook to the November 1st. And if that doesn't happen, this area is going to sink deeper into drought. But you can see better signals for rainfall in the European model across broader sectors of North America, which had been forecast pretty dry. And that's what we currently have from the longer range models. Now from here, I'm going to do something just to look back and try to understand October's recently. If you go back to 2020, all right, to last year, we have seen a lot of dry weather in the lower Mississippi Valley and up the East Coast. There have been pockets of dryness in the central U.S. and in the Northwest. And 4 out of these 5 fall Octobers we're looking at here, 2020 through 2024, have had La Niñas as well. So if you look at it, this has been the average ocean temperature pattern. And if you're curious, that's very, very close to what we're dealing with today. Now, I've exaggerated the color bar to go from -1 to 1. And so it's showing the heat a lot and the cool a lot. The small color bar here. But is this a useful metric on trying to figure out maybe what the rest of this October is going to be? I don't buy into this. I don't think we're going to be wetter in this area. But I think this is maybe closer to what we may see this fall. Now, a lot of that's going to be based on, ocean temperature patterns as a clue, because I'm not using the MJO right now. It's too much in null space. I'm waiting on recurving typhoons. I'm watching the North Atlantic, just trying to figure out where and when the momentum's going to shift. Is the jet going to stop doing, that and start to just come back? And maybe there's a clue here. Couple of things. We've been cooling this down. La Niña continues to build. Interestingly enough, that happened last year too. This is the current ocean temperature pattern. This was last year. La Niña was building. This was cooling down. This was still very warm. The North Atlantic was warm. Look how close these 2 Octobers look. That is a very, very similar pattern overall across the planet. And one other thing that was interesting, come over to the Indian Ocean. There is a circulation in the trade winds here, similar to the Central Pacific and the Atlantic. There's 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. And that Indian Ocean dipole is what we call it, dropped last October to November. And guess what? It dropped this September and October. So there are some similarities happening in our global tropical ocean regions. So you say, well, what happened after October last year? Well, into November and December, you look at the precipitation anomalies. We just made a massive flip here while we kept the East Coast drier, the Southwest drier, but we started to bring in jet stream flow to the Northwest. I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to steer away from this as a possible solution for for November and December, simply because of the similarities to this fall to last fall. So just be aware that this could be the situation that we find ourselves in. And temperature-wise, that's not a cold pattern. There's moisture, but it's not a cold pattern. And last November to December looks something like this when you combine that 60-day time frame. It was mild. So what are the models saying? This is November's temperature forecast from the ECMWF, which is going to update on Sunday. So Monday, come watch the video. I'm going to have it in there. And this is December. It's not breaking things down, trying to deliver cold air until we get into January. Now, why that's so important is that's when the cold air got here last winter. Do you remember this? Yes, brutally cold air, snow down around the Gulf Coast. So is it a possible analog? Yeah, don't put any weight in it. I'm just showing you something today to consider as we build this story as to the way winter may go. Precipitation-wise, though, I mean, have a look. This is what November to December look like. Let's come back and have a look at let's just do monthly here. This is October, okay, drier. November, look, we're suppressing that dryness and bringing it east. And then December, it's really kind of shoving its way out till you get into January, which is full-on La Nina looking. Yeah, maybe there's a chance. It seems to be that the models are tracking toward a scenario that we saw last fall and last winter. Maybe that's where we should kind of leave this idea. Elsewhere around the world, I want to take you quickly to South America and just play this forward. This is infrared satellite temperatures estimation on the last 2 days of precip. And this is not what a full-on monsoon looks like. There is a boundary right in through here, but remember, we're looking at clouds, not rain. And the rainfall has not been plentiful in this area. You're seeing a lot of color, but no, we're looking for these bright reds that show up. Watch it again. Most of our biggest storms have been just kind of spiraling around through Para into parts of Mato Grosso and over here toward, what do we call this? Rondonia, I believe. Yeah, and so this has been very dry in this area. Now, we know that over the next couple of weeks, we're still expecting it to be dry. For example, there's the next 10 days. But some of the models, as we've been discussing all week, are attempting to revive some precipitation mid-month. And there it is in the European ensemble. And if that comes through, that means these next 10 days are wide open planting and then desperately needed rains coming through in the day 8 through 14. And I've been working, the last thing I'm going to tell you today, I've been working on something new for you. I'm excited about this, especially those of you that are watching us from other places around the planet, or if you monitor these weather patterns elsewhere. We have built a local weather, but with international data on it. And so where are we? This is Rondopolis. So let me zoom out and show you where you are. Okay, yeah, it is Rondonia. That's Mato Grosso. I went right down here. This is a very big ag area. And I wanted to show you something. This is my precipitation year to date. So this is their dry season, and they've just had a little bit of rain coming in as of late. But it's the dry season. By the way, you can see here's the end of the wet season, right? So see this? It ends in April. They had one nice little rain here in May, but that's their dry season. If you look at their 15-day forecast on precip, some of the models, once we get out here, are trying to bring up the rains. Not in the next 10 days, but out there day 10 through 15. There's the ECMWF, there's the GFS, even the AI models getting in on this. Now, what's 59 millimeters of rainfall if they get all of that? That's 1 inch for those of you that's 2 inches. I can't even write on the screen today. That's 2 inches for those of us that use imperial units. 25 would be 1. So models are attempting to bring up that rainfall. What's interesting is during this drier stretch, man, these daytime temps are hot in that area. I mean, we're seeing some of the forecast models really cranking up the heat. Now, they're used to this, but I just wanted to show you this will be another tool at our disposal as we get out there and look at these longer range forecasts elsewhere around the world. So I'm going to stop it there and just say look forward to these updates in the month of October, and we will talk again on Monday. Thanks.